Okay. I will call to order the meeting of the trustees of trust funds for Wednesday, June 21st, 2023. First item on our agenda is to approve the minutes of the May 24th meeting.
So move.
Second.
Okay, any corrections, deletions, additions? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Okay, our next item on the agenda are scholarships. Do we know if Kathleen's going to be here or not?
She never said anything to me.
Okay. All right, let's jump to number 3, and we'll come back to the scholarships. Number 3 on the list is the request for disbursement on the Cable Television Public Access Trust. That was in the material that was sent out on Monday.
Is there actually a trust?
Yes.
Yes. There is a trust.
And what's it say?
The trust, did I bring a copy of it?
You should have a copy of it. There's
I
an
have
extra
a
one.
copy of it here. Basically, it says that there's a commission that's set up, and they review the financials. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. And they meet once or twice a year to review the what needs to come out of the trust. And then the city manager sits on the board as well. They make the recommendation of how much money that comes in needs to come back out to fund the public television, and they vote on it, and then the city manager makes the request over, which is per the trust.
So the city council doesn't have to vote on it?
Does not.
No,
This is one of the few that,
the background is that they set this up back in like 05, 06. This is separate from the governmental television station, the one that records all the city meetings. This is a separate 501c3.
Right.
And it has the city manager or her designee as a board member. Annually, they have to adopt a budget. As part of that budget, they determine how much of the monies that are received annually from the cable company, and that committee takes a formal vote, and it just has to come to us with a certificate or a certification from the city manager that it meets with the purposes of the trust. So that's why it's signed by her at the bottom. The minutes are attached.
Yeah, I saw the minutes of their meeting. I just wanted to make sure it didn't have to go to the city council.
should not.
No.
I'm a little curious why they're going to move their office possibly to Newington.
Yeah, I saw that as well. I wish I had been a fly on the wall of their meeting, but I have no idea. But
You know, Judy?
I've sat in on the meetings. I know that the space that they're currently in, for whatever reason, I'm not privy to the reasons why they need to get out of that space. So they're looking for space either in Portsmouth and Newington. They're currently looking for space. I know that there was space at the Newington Mall that they've been offered, to rent. That has the right configuration, enough space for them. They do need to have some sort of a presence in Portsmouth, so I know that's part of the whole thing too. But I'm sure you could ask Karen Kennard or Suzanne Woodland, and they'd be able to update you on that piece of it. But
are they the one that was at the, not the Button Factory, but one of those former factories down in the West End?
yeah.
Okay. Well, hear a motion to approve the request dispersal?
I'll move the approval of the request as submitted.
I'll second. When will this expire?
Well, that's part of the conversation too, as the monies are most likely going to start to dwindle from cable television because that whole industry is changing. They're working on all that. I mean, conceivably in a few years. I mean, it's something that Suzanne's watching all the legislation on all this. I mean, if the money stopped coming in from cable television, then obviously if they want to continue that, they're going to have to need to find other ways to get funding. So there's no set timeline, Peter, but they are looking at the fact, and I know that the public television network is, they're aware of that as well. They're looking at a lot of options. Their board is looking at a lot of different things to see if it's viable for them, and they hope that it is. And obviously, we do too. So, but they have to come up with a certain amount of funding.
I found it interesting on Market Square Day, there was a new competitor trying to sell their services.
Oh.
Who was that?
I got the card because my bill would be in half. And
that was opposite of, what do you have in Portsmouth, Comcast?
I have Comcast.
I have Comcast as well, here in Dover.
I
Interesting.
pay $300 a month.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
my only concern was, is this company going to have Nessun?
If Major League Baseball gets its way, you'll have to pay a separate fee for that. I'll call the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, so.
So there are two checks. It is totaling the amount of the 175, but the television network asked if they could have one check for 170 and then the second check for 5,500. Evidently, it takes longer for the bigger check to clear, and they need some funding up front right away, so that's why there are two checks. The amount totals the amount that they have requested.
They're concerned that
Well, their budget runs yearly, and it's mid-June, so I'm sure they're getting close.
Okay.
They don't have to worry about the checks bouncing, we got the money there. Thank you.
All right, let's go on to the TD Wealth Management reports.
So I didn't receive anything from TD themselves, but I just did one of my reports. If you want me to do more every month, I'm happy to, but this is just the year-to-date, and the last line is the line that is the month of May. So that you can see, I mean, this is just one of my tracking items, but
it's the reason you gave me two.
that's why I don't have one, Peter. Thank you. I said I must only printed 3. So I don't know if there's something that you want me to do in addition to make sure. I was under the impression that we'd have a dashboard, but I couldn't remember if it was monthly or quarterly.
Oh, I think it was monthly. And would you just, in the minutes, let him know that we did not receive anything?
Okay. So this.
I think Suzanne prepares them based on her comments at the meeting, so you should reach out to her.
Yes, I will. Item 4.
So just looking at this the chart, the very top thing says overall performance since inception with TD.
You have to remember that includes like the withdrawals and that big deposit. So, I mean, it's just basically, it's looking at what the difference between that very first month in April in 2021 and where we are now.
Right. But the minus 8.4%, that, it can't be equal to 131,000. So that number is separate from the balance? Okay. All right.
So we had the big deposit, of course, in May, so
Yeah.
that's going to make it look like it's doing very well. I mean, here on this sheet, not performance-wise, but,
Right. But basically, it's down
yeah.
8.5%.
So where did the 8.5% come from?
From inception, it's the difference between, let me think about this, and I'm sorry. You know what, I'm gonna have to look at that, Dana.
Yeah.
I might have an old number in there, and I apologize. I'll look at that one and come back and resend it to you. That might be high, greater than what it should be. The 131 is okay, but that percentage might be
The
skewed.
131 is just the change in the balance.
Yeah,
Yeah, but because of that $988,000 deposit, that's a misleading.
yeah. That's why their dashboard is better than, I mean, this is just kind of my tracking just to see where we're at, so. That was what they had said in the dashboard, if I remember correctly, that you wouldn't, I think Peter had asked the question, that you wouldn't see the skew because it was based on the true performance of the portfolio, something like that, right, Peter?
Time-weighted average.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we
I mean,
definitely,
I don't know if you still want the little graph that I do, I mean.
Well, if we get what they
We
said they'd
shouldn't
give
need
us, that should be
Okay.
enough,
Okay,
yeah, I
at least for
mean,
me.
okay,
I'm pretty sure, because we had talked about monthly numbers as well as year-to-date numbers.
Yeah.
And
yep.
so, we definitely would like to see one of those for the 6-month, first half of the
So
year.
July, yeah. I will let them know.
All right. All right, now I'm going to just go back to the scholarships then. And I'm assuming Kathleen's not going to be able to join us. I can report on some of the conversations I've had with her, but let's just, the last one, item number 5. You recall that we had asked Susan Morrill to look into how we might go about changing the provision in the community scholarships that said that it had to be a graduate of a New Hampshire high school. Before I left on vacation, I had followed up with her, and she was in touch with Judy yesterday to say she hadn't, she has a conflict with today's meeting, so she wants to come in July. So we'll hopefully follow up with her at that point. The Mortimer Scholarship. So just because it's been a month. So the last time we were here, we met with Kathleen, and she had said she would produce a new draft of the non-judicial settlement agreement, which she did, was circulated to the three of us. You offered, I did some redlining on it. You offered some corrections and changes. You had one policy issue, and so we had decided to deal with the policy issue at today's meeting. I did have a conversation with Kathleen in the course of that when I was following up on these other items, and I'll share some thoughts on that as well. But why don't you?
Yeah, I met with the college counselor at the high school to see what they do on renewable scholarships, and because and the Mortimer Scholarship allows for renewable, but because of the balance of the two scholarships currently, before this new addition, there was never a lot of money available, so they had not renewed any because they didn't have the cash. So I said, well, because Bill's intent, and I know this because of meetings I had with him, he said everybody helps the first year. I want to help through the 2 or 4 years wherever they're going. And that was his intent. And talking to the college counselor, that the ones that are renewable, they don't have to fill out a new application. She and I had Judy send out, when they get their check for the current year, the counselor gets all of their information, including their email address, because a lot of kids move, and they get this email in January, I think, and they have to fill out not an application, but a copy of their transcript to make sure they are still enrolled and so forth. So as long as they adhere to this, the scholarship is renewable. The ones that they deal with are renewable. And what she would do on the page under number 8, she would add the Mortimer box. Those are the ones currently that are renewable. But Mortimer has not been renewable because there wasn't sufficient money available to do it. So I just want to make sure that in the thing to the Attorney General's office that they both will be renewable and based on the information that are required by the school department to be filled out.
Okay. I note that the email describes it as a renewable scholarship application, so I think what they've done is just created a separate application for a renewal from an initial application.
That's right, yes. And it doesn't ask any, I mean, they don't have to write an essay or anything like that.
Well, in light of that, are you comfortable with the drafts of these as presented?
In what paragraph do you address that?
Okay, so did you happen to have a copy of the email that I did? Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I get so many.
That's right. So on page 2 is where I had gone through both of the
Thank you.
and so I think it's clear from the Mortimer 2, if you will, scholarship fund, that it's renewable because it specifically says a scholarship is renewable and a student upon reapplication is eligible to receive this scholarship for a total of 4 years. So it doesn't say it has to be the original application, it just says it has to be a reapplication. So I think what you've described and what was in this January email satisfies that, so we don't need to change that. the ambiguity comes in Mortimer 1, because it doesn't say anything about it one way or another, so that's why the language we have included in paragraph 15, which are the changes. Most of the earlier stuff is just recitations, and so paragraph 15, the first, I'm sorry, so it's A, so it says paragraph 2 and subparagraph 3A are modified to provide that the scholarship awards may be payable starting with the first year of attendance at the accredited 2 or 4-year institution of higher learning, and may be renewed for up to an additional 3 years.
And does that address both scholarships?
Well, no, that just addressed the first one.
Yeah, there's two.
The second scholarship, Mortimer 2, has language in it right now that says it's
Okay.
renewable up to 4 years.
All right.
Now, if you want them to be absolutely consistent, we could put that reapplication language in Mortimer 1.
Yeah, instead of reapplication, as outlined, renewable as outlined by the Portsmouth High School Guidance Department, so that it isn't a full application, it's this.
Well, but the question is, the Mortimer 2 specifically says reapplication. The Portsmouth High School has interpreted that as allowing them to have an abbreviated reapplication, but it's still an application.
Well, Bill's intent was that they be renewable.
No, we're absolutely clear on that. I think between the language that's in Mortimer 2 and what we're proposing to put in Mortimer 1, there's no question whatsoever that it's renewable up, not just 3 years, but up to 4 years. So the only issue is the reapplication process. And what I'm saying, and this is sort of semantics, but so Mortimer 2 said, Bill wanted to say upon reapplication. The high school has interpreted that as meaning it's an abbreviated reapplication. It's not the full application, which I think is consistent with what Bill probably had in mind. Should Mortimer 1 be any different than Mortimer 2? My only concern about it is we know what they do right now. I don't know what they'll do in 3 years or 5 years. We're crafting a document that we don't want to have to go back to the AG's office every.
Yeah, but I don't also want to have them say, oh, that says reapplication, so you may not get it renewed, type of thing. Because that's not the intent.
Well, you want it to reapplication that is a guaranteed.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, so there are still conditions in the scholarship. So you still have to maintain a certain academic level. You have to be of good character. If you're out and arrested or something, then I think Bill envisioned that somebody who wasn't keeping up to his standards would not get a check in the subsequent year.
That's pretty much outlined in more than one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are sort of three issues here then, okay? One is whether it's renewable, because we know most scholarships are for the first year only. Secondly is, what's the process? And the process requires a reapplication, although it's an abbreviated one. And then the third issue is whether you're guaranteed to get the money upon submitting that reapplication. But the first one, the renewability, is taken care of. The application one is already in Mortimer 2, and seems to be working with other applications that are renewable, with other scholarships that are renewable. And then the third one, I think, is, I think every year you have to meet Bill's criteria for getting it in the first place.
On issue number 3,
Yeah.
the
That's
renewable application that Peter showed us from the high school would supports the qualifications from Mortimer 1. In other words, I don't necessarily think it's automatic. So if someone has a 1.5 GPA, they might not get renewed.
I can say I know that is correct, because one of the things that's waited for is the high school goes through and sees on the other renewables, who's might be eligible for renewable. And then the students have to provide, certain documentation before I write the check. I have to see that they're still enrolled. I have to get something from the school before I issue the check. A lot of times, the high school checks the grades, I think, on the renewables to make sure that they're still within a certain GPA. Obviously, if someone's been suspended, sometimes the schools let us know. If we haven't had that very often, but somebody's dropped out all of a sudden, the school lets us know and sends us the money back. So there is communication on that piece of it.
I think the form that's being used gives everything that Bill would have asked for, so.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but what happens if one of the questions is, what was your GPA, right? And as Dana said, the example is someone who has the equivalent of a D.
Well, I think we're trying to, you guys can pass what you want. I won't vote for it if they fill out this form, there's no reason they shouldn't be renewed, so.
Well, doesn't that assume that the answers are consistent with Bill's criteria?
I'm not sure that you have, I've gone through all of the two things pretty carefully.
What do you mean?
They're both trust, and
Yeah.
it's not, it's not explicit of what would be required for years 2, 3, and 4.
All right, well, I'm not trying to parse words with you, but, so let's take Mortimer 1. It says that eligible student is, 1, a graduate of Portsmouth High School, and it does say it was completed 1 year of study, but we're going to take care of that. 2, who is in good academic standing. 3, has demonstrated good character and determination. 4, who substantiates need for financial assistance to further education. So it seemed to me you got to satisfy those things each year.
And I think the form that is, that the high school provided, you have to do your GPA, which your major is, a transcript, family contribution, so FAFSA is still part of the application.
Yeah.
So,
We're totally in agreement on that, but the question is, what happens if somebody submits this, answers this, and includes in it, failed 2 out of 4 classes? Or the FAFSA reveals that Dad hit the megabucks that year. And
and they wouldn't have financial need.
that's right.
And that's one of the criteria. But that's nothing the trustees get involved in.
No.
Right, the
No.
high
what-
school does.
This is not for our benefit. All this is really for the benefit of the school so that they can give this money out.
Yeah.
I mean, all we're going to do, no matter what we do with this, is certify at the beginning of every year how much money will be available in June when they give out the scholarships.
Yeah. In talking to Brittany, the ones that are renewable, providing that they fill out all those things, they're automatically renewable. So, I don't know. I don't know if somebody's GPA went below 2, whether or not, she didn't indicate that they have not renewed people for specific reasons. The only reason they would not be renewed is if they don't comply with filling out the form that they are sent in January.
Is that what she said?
Yep.
All right, well, I just, it seems to me the purpose for filling out their application is to confirm that the student still meets the eligibility requirements. So if somebody goes off to school and literally doesn't complete any of his classes,
They may not be enrolled,
well, that's right.
so they wouldn't qualify. They're not enrolled.
Yeah, but the only reason you would know they didn't qualify is because they couldn't show you that they were enrolled.
That's part of the thing here. You have to send a transcript
To me,
from the school.
to me.
Oh, to you?
I don't cut a check unless I have the proper documentation. I
Okay.
have to see that they're enrolled in school.
But I think the purpose for this is to take that out of your hands, because this now basically,
Every scholarship is that way.
okay,
I do not, that's like a trustee thing. We don't issue checks unless they prove to us that they're in
okay.
school.
But my point is, so, and again, I'm just trying to come up with an example of, I don't know if somebody doesn't complete all their courses, whether they're enrolled or not enrolled. I think you have to be, I mean, you could,
But that's not a decision for us to make.
yeah, I totally agree. I'm just, this is just a concept that a student who seeks a renewal of an award of a scholarship given in year 1 has to show that they still meet the criteria of that scholarship in year 2, and the only way you do that is requiring them to fill out this form.
It's
And if
not
they-
an application, it's a form showing that they are still enrolled, what their GPA is.
I think you guys are saying the same thing.
I do too, Dana. I really do.
So I don't, I'm kind of agreeing with you. What I don't understand is what is it you object to in the language of the proposed draft that you think doesn't,
Since this is not going to make any difference until next year's scholarship, I would table it till the next meeting. I'd like to review it again. Your draft, I thought from the meeting Kathleen was going to send us something.
Well, she did. My draft is a red line
Yeah.
of her draft.
And
Well, but, you know, unless Dana has an objection, I'm happy to table it and until whenever you want.
I can ask Kathleen to come next meeting, I mean, to see
I
what she's
don't, I don't
at
know
with
what
it.
she's gonna, difference
Yeah.
she'll add to the conversation.
who, Kathleen?
Kathleen, yeah.
Well, I want to look and see the major changes that have been, you know, you and I talked about this. It may be attorney versus attorney. She wrote it one way, you wrote it another. So
But you can see it on the red line draft, right?
that's why I want to have time to review that again.
Okay.
All right, well, I don't have any problem. All right, I'll accept that as a motion to table. Do you-
Second.
Second, okay. Any further discussion? All right, call the question. All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Okay. Is there anything you need before? I mean, can I,
Oh, I've got a whole file between your comments, Kathleen's comments, the high school's comments.
yeah, I think, well, anyway, we've tabled it, so we'll talk about it next time. All right, so McHale,
That had been left with Kathleen Dwyer to either, she was going to look into whether it made more sense to expend it out per the way the trust was written, or did a non-judicial settlement agreement make more sense just to be able to get done? Because remember,
well, no. So the issue, I think, was this. When the non-judicial settlement was done in 2018, it changed it over from a regular perpetual scholarship to a sunshine or, you know,
Yeah.
one that would, and it was determined that this year was fine, but next year there'd only be a partial scholarship?
yeah, it there did not appear that there would be the full 10,000, but,
Right.
yeah.
And so the discussion was whether or not, whatever that fractional amount was, it could just be put into one of the community scholarships.
Correct.
And I think Kathleen said that she thought if we did that, it would require us to go through another non-judicial settlement agreement.
Right.
And the question is whether we want to do that, or we want to simply give the balance out in next year's scholarship, if it's 5,000 or 6,000 or 3,000.
Right, and I think part of the reason this came up is because Carrie McHale's mom is just done with
She
wanting to do it.
doesn't want to go
Yeah,
through the application process again.
yeah. So, but it was, my understanding is it was left with Kathleen, and I'm not sure where she's at the moment. So that's another reason why, I mean, do I put Kathleen on the schedule for next month
Yeah.
for that reason alone?
Well, I think we'll want her here, because
Okay.
she wanted to talk about the Flynn one as well. But do you care?
I want to do whatever the mother wants to do. I mean, she, you know, it was 80 some odd applications last year.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot.
All right,
I
well,
don't think she realized, you know.
okay. How do you feel about it, Dana?
Is the question whether to pursue the non-judicial
If,
agreement?
yes. So it's either pursue the non-judicial agreement to change what can happen with whatever the sum is under $10,000, so that that money can be deposited into one of the community scholarships. or leave it as it is, and then next year there'll be one more time
Just expend it all.
that it would have to be expended, but presumably it would mean that her mother has to go through the exercise of reviewing all those scholarships again. Although there have been occasions in which we've had scholarship funds that had family members or other groups who reviewed them, and they turned that function over to the school.
I don't know. That would be a Kathleen
Yeah.
question.
All right. Well, but do you care one way or another?
No, no. The easiest route would be the route I would take, to terminate the balance.
Okay. Well, the easiest route for us might not be the same as Mrs. McHale. All right, well, we'll get Kathleen in here.
Okay.
You bring up you asked a good question, whether she could delegate her authority to the school to review the applications. I don't know, would that be,
I only raised that because I thought there was one, I think maybe the Durgan Scholarship or something,
Could be. I
which
don't
was
remember.
originally handled by the Durgan family, and then they all dispersed and no one wanted to do it anymore, so it was turned over, the actual process of selecting a recipient was turned over to the school.
so in either case, in either route we take, there's one more year of scholarship for
That's
the
right.
McHale.
Or if we do the non-judicial, there is no more. It goes into one of the community funds.
Community, yeah.
Right. So I will communicate with Kathleen that we need to
Yep.
have something on this for July.
Okay.
All right.
Might be a good boost to the community fund.
Yeah, and my preference would be to do the community fund,
Yeah.
other than I don't want to go against the original intent of a scholarship fund simply because it benefits. We had to go through a long process of getting those 20 scholarships collapsed into the community funds. All right, the Flynn. So the issue there is that we have a check for $25,000 from Jack McGee, who was handling the Tom and Alice Flynn scholarship, creation of the scholarship under her will. And that money
I need to
been sitting
deposit.
there since February, is because Kathleen was, I guess, going to, or had communicated with you that there was going to be a trust agreement. But the issue there is that we haven't required a trust agreement for bequests in a will. And I think of Tommy McCann as an example. So I've communicated that to her after our last meeting and suggested that we should just take this money. Under our community scholarship policies, under our scholarship policies, we have a whole paragraph that talks about scholarship bequests, and it simply says, often individuals include provisions in their will and estate planning documents to contribute to existing scholarships to establish new funds. The City of Portsmouth welcomes those. However, such bequests are accepted subject to the policies as stated above. For instance, if the terms of the will provide for an ongoing scholarship, but the amount of the bequest is less than $25,000, the bequest may create a sunset scholarship fund. So I think we can accept the $25,000 and just treat it as a scholarship, as we've done with similar ones in the past.
What did we do with Trafton?
That I don't know.
That was just recently.
I haven't gotten a check.
I don't remember
Trafton.
Trafton.
Rappold.
And that was in a will, or was that in the
Well, I
family?
think that was, they took some time to get it to 25,000.
Right, so that's different. So, we've had a number like Tony Ron, where after somebody passes away, family members or school groups raise the money to create a scholarship. That requires a written scholarship agreement. But it's standard practice normally for someone to simply say, I put so much in my will to create a scholarship. And we don't, I mean, the person's deceased, so technically they can't enter into a scholarship agreement anyways. We could have their estate, we could ask Jack, for instance, to do it. But I just think we're making extra work for ourselves. The will itself sets forth the terms. What Kathleen said was, and she was going to address us on this, is she agrees that it's not necessary to do a scholarship agreement, but she thinks there ought to be a, something in writing summarizing the terms of the scholarship. And then she said that she has produced some type of one-page summary that she provides to the high school. And I had asked her to send that, but I didn't receive it,
Received
so.
it. Here's the thing, is that because the check is getting to a point where it's going to become stale, I would like permission to at least deposit it into the trust fund's checking account to hold it so that we don't get into a position with the law firm that, can you please issue me another check?
I know Jack pretty well. It was kind of a, I don't like giving the check without the receipt type of thing.
Oh, yeah. I think Kathleen sent them back the receipt. Yeah, actually, it was signed by Susan. So my thought would be to accept, we've already accepted the money, let's deposit it. We don't have to put it into the TD management funds yet, we can just hold it.
I can hold it.
In the bank.
In the bank, until we're sure where it's supposed to go.
I can't conceive of any reason why the check would ever have to go back.
No, it's just a matter of, is it going to go into a community scholarship? It's just, if we're reporting to the state government, we're going to have to know where it's supposed to go. When I file the MS-9 and MS-10, I have to account for every penny in every trust. We've got $25,000. Which trust is it going to be in? So that needs to be determined by June 30th.
By June 30th.
It
So we
does.
won't even meet by then.
Yeah.
So is this a question, whether it goes into the community fund or a named fund? Is that what's on the table?
Well, there's two questions on the table. One is whether this requires some type of trust agreement.
Right.
And on that question, my opinion is it doesn't, because
Right.
that's traditionally not the way it's done. The trust, the will has a provision that says this is the name of it, and this is what it will be used for, and the criteria. The only criteria is that the person be a graduate of Portsmouth High School and want to pursue studies in political science.
Political science, yeah.
Well, I understand Kathleen thinks it's important to have something in writing as direction to the high school. but
Will it be set up as the Flynn Scholarship, or will it go into community? Or is that the
That's the way
question?
his thing says.
yeah,
In which case, that makes it easy for me. I can set up a new code, just put Flynn Scholarship, put the $25,000 in it, and then, but if we determine later that it's supposed to go in the community scholarship or something, then,
Oh, I think it's a named fund.
well, yeah, so the terms of
That's
the
easy
will
then.
said the sum of.
my part, that's easy. I
Yeah.
just deposit it and put it in Flynn.
Well, yeah, it says it will be named Alice G. Flynn and Thomas
Yeah.
E. Flynn, you know.
We've done those before.
So I think we accept the money, we
Yeah.
create a new
Yeah.
named scholarship fund,
Okay.
and if,
I mean, she can do that letter whenever she wants to the
Okay.
high school,
Okay.
exactly.
you know? And when they put it in the program, they put what it's for.
Yep.
The high school students studying political science.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's a little shameful that this check is outstanding.
I'd like to get it deposited, so I'll put it in, I'll set up the Flynn Scholarship, and that's how I'll report it to the state.
You got the name from the will.
Yep,
Yes.
yep, okay, well, let's formally adopt that.
Yep.
Do I hear a motion to that effect?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Great, thank you very much.
I'm sure Jack will be happy to be able to close out his book.
Yes, I'm sure he will be.
All right, now, do we have any other checks? or-
Yes, we do. First, I've got the second half of the payout to Prescott Park and the marine maintenance for the budget. We did the first part in January. This is the second check. It's for the same amount as it was last time. You can see that this report is as of 5/31, so June's not in there yet. Look at on the right-hand side, the yellow column next to the green column that says funds available. If you look at that yellow column down at the bottom, you can see that the money is, this check for $112,000 is going to offset the current negative of 118. This is the money that's going to go in, and then anything now from this point forward is what the city will true up with. We expect to be right on budget. Peter Weeks has been watching that very closely, so the total amount of the budget to be expended for Prescott Park and the docks for fiscal year '23 is a total of $526,000. The trust and the Marine Maintenance Trust contribute $225,900 based on what you voted on. City picks up the rest. And that goes up
Amazing
every
number,
year. Goes up every year. Yeah.
Remember those days, Tom, with trying to run it on 230?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the budget has not changed since it was adopted?
It has not.
Okay.
No. Has not. So. And the city will, the city trues up everything as of next week. Everything will be deposited in. So this is the check for $112,950, the second half.
Judy, how do you do the allocation of our contribution on the line items? You just
Well-
take a percentage?
What we do is, I usually, I talked to the Attorney General's office, and they said, try to use it for, we'd like to see, because, every now and then they'll ask for a review, salaries, use it for things that, make sense that you've used it for in the past. So I just try to allocate it out. Sometimes I divide, we divide salaries out. I work with Peter on what part's going to cover what part. But it all has to be explainable expenses, which they are. I mean, these are all basically expenses that you used to have, except they're much higher
So
than
you
they
have a
used to
lot
be.
of discretion on how you allocate?
We do. Yeah, we do. I mean, obviously, the dock piece down at the bottom, the docks, is completely covered in full by the Marine Maintenance Trust piece. That stands out. But, I mean, gardening supplies alone are up to $50,000 for fiscal year '23, and I think they're right around that again for fiscal gardening has become very expensive, the flowers and stuff.
They look
So-
good.
Yeah. So
All right,
that's that
well,
one.
Would one of you like to move to approve this
So
endorsement?
Second?
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. And then I have one small check here, and it is to be paid to FedEx. It's for $80, and that was to overnight the check for, to TD Wealth for the $1 million, and needed to be overnighted, so we have to cover that expense. Just, I'm going to spread it across the 4 investment funds.
Holy.
Is that what it cost for?
$80.
Box?
Is that because of insurance or something?
No, it's just 80, it was $80.
next day delivery.
Next day delivery, yeah.
That seems awful.
And they were waiting for it. And I actually did it through the city's account where we get a discount, so.
Really?
Wow. I would have driven it to Portland for half that.
I am looking into talking with citizens to see if there's a way that we could, how complicated it would be to be able to do a wire process. But I don't know if that means that, the trustees are going to have to go in and approve that. I don't know what it entails, but if I could save us the money, I'll do that.
Yeah, but how often do we,
This is the first time
Yeah.
I've done it in a long time.
I mean, to set up the wire, they're going to charge you like
$25 probably.
$25 every time you wire it anyway. So,
So, but
I-
and then-
luckily it doesn't happen, well, luckily or unluckily, it doesn't happen very often, so.
Judy, not that you should, but what would have happened if you overnighted it through the post office?
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't shop around.
$10, I think.
Yeah.
I didn't shop around this time, but next time I can. Literally, I needed to get it out.
Yeah,
So,
they have next day delivery.
Where did it go?
South Carolina.
Why can't you just bring it to the TD? down?
I wanted to hand it to John when he was here. He said he couldn't do it, so.
Right, okay.
Next time I'll look at something different. I'll plan better and do
Well,
something differently.
but should be, if they wanted the money that quick, you could have written it down at the State Street office.
Well, that's what I was
Just
saying,
said,
that they can't refuse it. Why can't they just deposit it down there and
He told me
transfer it internally?
It needed to go to South Carolina. is
You know
I
what,
was
though? That's the bank I go to. I'm not sure anybody down there would know where to. They've changed managers.
And I'm not
Yeah.
sure, Dana, I mean, this sounds like a stupid question, but is that wealth department is different than the regular banking department, is it not? I mean, they might have different offices to where,
Well,
I don't know.
yeah, the answer is yes and no.
Okay.
But South Carolina is a hub of administration for the bank and wealth and whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, any
So
other checks?
is the manager, what was her name at TD? Susan? No.
Susan,
Lisa?
Lisa.
She went to Provident Bank.
She did?
Lisa, entry there.
so I'm all set.
Okay. All right, I see no members of the public. Is there any new business? All right, well, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Well done.
Thank you very much.